it still leaves us feeling very warm and fuzzy when we see registrations come, from far and near, across the country, across continents. It's just fantastic to see how parents everywhere are sailing pretty much in the same boat as to what they want for their children. So it's lovely to have that connection. Prerna, once you give me a good to go, we will get started.
Yes, Seema, good to go.
Thank you. Dr. Nandita, with your permission, shall we launch into today's agenda?
Sure, Seema. Can't
Thank
wait
you.
for it to start.
Thank you. We are so excited to have you here with us this evening. And Dr. Nandita D'Souza is our expert speaker for today's webinar. The topic is preparing for our child's puberty. Dr. Nandita D'Souza is a developmental and a behavioral pediatrician, and she has been working exclusively in the field of child and family mental health for the last 30 years. Since 2005, she's been the director of Setu Center for Child Development and Family Guidance in Goa, and it's a charitable trust working in the field of child mental health and disability. She's a TEDx speaker, and she has worked extensively in the area of childhood sexuality, as this is such an important aspect of our children's lives, closely linked to their socialization, independence, personal safety, and emotional well-being. An eternal child at heart with a great sense of humor, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Dr. Nandita D'Souza, our expert speaker for today. Dr. Nandita loves to have her audience interact with her. And so when she wants to hear from you, please put your responses in the chat. And any questions coming up for all of you through the session, please keep putting them in the chat box. And we will be collating and asking Dr. Nandita those after her presentation. Without further ado, over to you, Dr. D'Souza.
Thank you so much, Seema, and to the entire team at Parenting Matters. It's a great honor for me to be here this evening, and I thank you for, you giving me the stage to spread my fame far and wide. You all have a wonderful network of parents, and I'm really honored to be here. Plus, you've given me a chance to talk about my favorite topic, which is childhood sexuality. So I'm warning you, you may need to kind of remotely bind and gag me to drag me off at 8 p.m. Because this is a topic that so much can be spoken about. I'm just going to share my screen now so that we can proceed with the presentation. You could just confirm that that can be seen. Okay, great. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit about what Setu does. So Setu, as its name suggests, it's a bridge, and we want to be a bridge between children and the rest of their worlds. And we focus on their complete development and helping children to reach their full potential through forming collaborations with whoever cares for children. We believe in three main, I would say, dictums. One is that early intervention. So the early years last forever. And therefore, the earlier we interact with children and start working on their development, the better it is. Two, we use a strengths-based approach because everyone is doing something right. And though very often families come to us filled with despair and they're very frustrated, we always start with what's going well. And that's essential to progress. And the third is, as I said, through collaboration. So this interaction with Parenting Matters is very much part of what Setu does. So welcome and introduction done. Then we'll go to the main session, which should be around 40 minutes or so. and then the question and answer session. So please post your questions. And lastly, we'd love to have your feedback, your frank and honest feedback, so that we can improve the quality of this session. Right, so before we start, I'd love for everybody to just write down one thing that you would like to know about today's topic. This is for you. We are not going to ask you to share this if you don't want, but it's basically to make sure that you get something which is relevant to your situation. So maybe your question or concern will be addressed during the session, but if it isn't, we will have time hopefully for it during the question answer session. So I'll give you 30 seconds to write down anything that you'd like to know about today's topic.
Would you like them to share it in the chat?
Well, they could, so that we have a sense. I can't see the chat, but I know you have your team on it.
Yes.
So y'all can start compiling kind of themes so that we can address as many questions as possible. Yes,
would
so
you
please
like
go ahead and share
would
it
you
in
like
the chat.
me to read a couple of them out to you?
Not right now.
Okay.
No, not necessary.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so I'd like to start off by saying that this whole area of sexuality, though many of us, especially when we are parents, we approach it with a lot of fear and trepidation, it's really a gift that all of us share. And it's, all of us share it regardless of whether we're children or we are teenagers or we are adults, okay? And, it's something that remains relevant right through life. So let's turn the clock back. I presume all the parents here have crossed their puberty, of course, and look back to your own puberty and think about it. And if you could share any two joys and any two sorrows, let's start with the joys first. So I'd love for you to put it in the chat, and Seema, you can let me know as soon as the responses start appearing.
Sure.
Looks like people are thinking really hard.
It's a long time ago for some of us.
Exactly. I was just going to say, if it's me, I have to turn the clock back some, I don't know, 47 years. Last century.
That's a badge of honor for my children. Wow, we have lived in 2 centuries.
Maybe I should have started with sorrows, actually.
So I'd like to share a couple of responses that have come in that, they started getting to wear big girl clothes.
Wow, okay.
And they were prepared for it, and it did not come as a surprise, and that can be hugely empowering.
Absolutely.
It was a point of pain, not pain, it says sad, because you've become conscious of your body. Joys, yes. Again, new clothes, feeling like a young adult, pampering from the family, opening up.
Right.
Beautiful. It's bringing back some memories for me now, reading that.
I know, talking about new clothes, I can remember how excited I was when I got my first bra. It was like a big moment, so.
And the sorrows, raging hormones, felt they were seriously sick and might die soon. It was quite depressing. Everyone came to them for advice, and that was a point of joy and being considered responsible, and they felt that they would be taken seriously, again a point of joy. It's mixing the
Yes.
joys and the sorrows, and quite typical of that time, isn't it?
Right. In fact, you can feel the two emotions at the same time. So in some ways you're excited because you're grown up, but at the same time it means a kind of loss of your childhood and being a baby and receiving all that pampering and attention. Now you're expected to behave responsibly and like an adult. Yeah. So I think the responses have brought out, how varying the emotions are and the experiences are. At the same time, there is a commonality of shared experience, which is very heartening to know about, that you're not alone.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much to all the parents who shared in the chat.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so
everyone.
so the sexual development of adolescents, and I would say 11 plus, there are a few major kind of headlines which I'm going to talk about. So of course, there's puberty and the growth spurt, which we will be focusing on today. Besides that, adolescents want information, so they will actively go out and look for it. And if they don't get it from their parents, they will seek it from friends or from the internet or wherever they find it. Then the interest in pornography, because it's accessible, plus the growing bodies and when all the sexual urges happen. And very often pornography does give them some information, but it also gives them a lot of misinformation. But this is something that as parents we need to be aware of and talk about it with our adolescents without kind of, shunning it or shaming them or telling them that it's something, bad. To see it as an opportunity for a conversation instead. Especially the younger adolescents tend to get together in same-sex groups, so girls will talk to other girls and boys will talk to boys. And quite often, because the bodies change at different rates, they may be comparing bodies, comparing information, and that could be something which is experienced as supportive. But for the adolescents who are kind of developing a little later, still within the normal range, but slightly later, they may feel that there's something wrong with them because they're not exactly like their friends. And of course, relationships becomes very important, and the whole interest in friendships, which again, we will talk a little more about. So what is puberty? It's a very, very exciting time of our lives, a very unique time of our lives when we change from a child to becoming an adult. Okay, and it's not an overnight process. It's a very gradual process, and it's triggered off by hormonal changes in the brain. So this kind of clock is set off by the hormonal changes in the brain. And the kind of key initiator of this is the pituitary gland, which is deep inside the brain, a small pea-sized shaped gland. And the pituitary gland releases what we call the pituitary hormones. Hormones are basically chemical messengers. So they travel through the bloodstream to other organs. And the endocrine organs, which produce more hormones in the whole sexuality cycle. In females, it is the ovaries, and in males, it is the testes. Okay, now the ovaries start producing estrogen. Okay, and estrogen is a female hormone which causes the release of the ova or the egg cells from the ovaries. Right? For the males, the pituitary hormones act on the testes, which are in the scrotum outside the body, and the testes produce the male hormone, which is testosterone. And this in turn leads to production of sperm, as well as the hormones also have a lot of other effects on our other body parts, which we will be talking about. Now, when does puberty start? As I said, there's no average age. It happens over an age range, and this is important to inform our children because they may be waiting for it to happen. And as I said, if their peers have already started showing external signs of puberty, they may feel rather anxious about it. It takes several years, and the rates and the types of changes differ, but it's all, for the most part, within the normal range. So for girls, it's over around 8 years, starting as young as age 8 even. So, very often parents say, oh, I'll wait till my child is a teenager to start explaining about puberty and adolescence to them. And that could be rather late. So it's better to start early so that they're prepared. As one of the parents shared in the chat, being prepared really allays a lot of the anxiety about these changes. For boys, it starts a little later, around 10 years, and lasts till about 18 years. So when we talk about precocious puberty is that which happens earlier on. Now the definition is before 8 years in girls. Before it was 9 years. But because we are seeing that there's an earlier onset of periods in girls, what we call menarche, This date has, or this age has now been kind of preponed to 8 years in girls and 9 years in boys. And precocious puberty can have many different reasons, but it's something that needs to be checked out by a trained pediatrician or an endocrinologist. So this is what I was referring to, where menarche, or the onset of the periods, is happening earlier. And there are two main reasons for this. One is the increase in body weight. It is said that, especially in girls, when the body weight reaches a critical mass, it stimulates that whole cascade which we spoke about the pituitary, and then acting on releasing the pituitary hormones, and then acting on the sex organs and so on. The other reason is something known as endocrine disruptors. Okay, so these endocrine disruptors are chemicals which are byproducts of many, many other chemicals. For example, the plastic industry, fertilizers, and other toxins in our environment. And these endocrine disruptors are present everywhere. They're there in our food, in our environment, in the air, in the water. And that's the reason why we have precocious puberty, as well as many, many other kind of cancers of like the prostate, the breast, the cervix, all the endocrine glands, the ovaries, and so on, as well as things like, polycystic ovarian disease. So it is now thought that it is these endocrine disruptors which are byproducts of like plastics, as well as fertilizers and other toxins in the environment. So now, what are the changes of puberty? I've put them into two main categories. So the physical changes, and this is very obvious, where there's a sudden increase in the height, and very often parents have, just bought new clothes and new shoes, and like 3 months down the line, the kids have outgrown, what they're wearing and need a whole new set. Okay, so both in boys and girls, this happens. And in boys, there's a lot of increase in the shoulder size with the height. And for girls, it's more in the pelvic area, and that's in preparation for, childbirth later on. Increase in weight also in both the genders. So many, young people worry about their weight and the sudden weight that they gain. Change in the hair becomes thicker, and the hair develops on other parts of the body, like the face, in the underarms, in the pubic region, both in boys and in girls. Changes in the skin, again, the sweat glands start producing excessive sweat, which is why adolescents sweat so much. And quite often, it kind of, especially in a place like India, the sweat sticks onto their clothes, and they kind of, smell more than her younger children. So it becomes quite obvious. Also, the sebaceous glands produce, that's the fat cells, they produce more oil. And that leads to acne and the oily skin that they experience. The voice changes, both in boys and in girls actually, but more in boys, where it becomes deeper. And that's because of growth of the larynx. And of course, the increase in the size of the genitals, the external genitals. So in boys, it's increase in the size of the penis and the testes, as well as the scrotum. And in girls, the increase in the size of the breasts. You also get increase in the size of the breasts of boys. So we need to inform boys about this, because they may worry about that. And the breasts also don't increase in size at the same time. One breast is very often larger or smaller than the other one. Okay, so that also unequal breast size is something which is normal. Then you have a whole range of social, emotional changes. We won't focus too much on them for lack of time, but adolescents become extremely moody, and they have mood swings. They're happy 1 minute and really like devastated by some trivial, what we think is trivial incident. And they can be quite puzzling to deal with. And of course, this interest in relationships, which could be same sex or opposite sex. So personal health and hygiene, how do we support our young people? Of course, good habits. And since they are very interested in the changes in their own bodies, they become quite self-conscious, we can use this interest to promote a healthy lifestyle, especially a healthy diet, because, they've probably been eating junk food from very young on. So it's important to tell them about the importance of not having too much salt in the diet, having a lot of protein because they need it for their muscles to grow and to become strong. Adequate sleep. Adolescents actually need at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep every day. Unfortunately, it is a time when they sleep much less because they're on their devices and chatting late into the night. And therefore, quite often they wake up late. In fact, the body rhythm, or what we call the diurnal rhythm during the day of the adolescent, is different from the adult, where they can stay awake longer and wake up later. So some countries abroad actually have changed their education timings for adolescents to start later in the day, when they're naturally more alert rather than 7 or 8 in the morning when their brains are still asleep. And then, of course, exercise is important in order to kind of keep fit and to build their muscle mass. Then I've spoken about the sweating and so on. So advising them to change their underwear and socks daily, making a personal hygiene kit. You should celebrate this. You're, becoming an adult. So, they need to shave. You have to use soap, maybe some soap which has some anti-infective properties, or shampoo for your hair and so on. So you make like a personal hygiene kit. And of course, for girls, the sanitary pads can be included in that. And it's great to shop together with them to kind of make this personal hygiene kit. Regular bathing, of course, using soap, shampoo, washing the private parts, cleaning the underarms because there's an excess of sweat in these places. Then facial washing for prevention of pimples. Actually, you don't need a special diet for pimples. It is mostly due to the increase in the sebaceous gland production. So, to wash your face frequently and never touch pimples. This is something which adolescents love to do, to kind of pop their pimples, but it will leave scars and it may drive the infection deeper. So we need to warn them about that. And of course, shaving. So they could use either manual razor or an electric one, and it's fun to buy one, which is your own. And razors should not be shared. That's something else that we need to tell them. Then the emotional changes, as I mentioned earlier, mood swings. So everything is more intense. So when they're happy, they're really happy, ecstatic. And when they're sad, they're devastated. So we need to be prepared for this. And I'm reminded about an incident which happened with my niece. So she was around 13 years old. And on Friday, at school, she told everyone, I'm going to go for a haircut. And so on Monday, I'll come with my new hairstyle. And for some reason, on Saturday, her parents couldn't take her to the salon. And they said, oh, it's open on Sunday. And of course, when they went on Sunday, it was closed. So my niece was devastated, and she came home and she was weeping and weeping. And my brother-in-law told her, it's not such a big deal. Yeah, forget, it's not a matter of life and death. So what if you go to school, with the same hairstyle? It's not a matter of life and death. And she turned around and said, of course it is a matter of life and death. So it was such a major incident in her life that she would, of course, first disappoint herself, and in turn she thought she was disappointing her friends. But it's like that. What may seem trivial to us isn't to them. Then they have a need for control and a need for some power, and this can lead to a lot of arguments, as well as sometimes even aggression. I would strongly recommend all parents to never ever use aggression with your teenagers. You shouldn't use aggression with any child, but especially with teenagers, because if you give one, you're going to get 10 back from them. And it really doesn't help them cooperate. Because when we use aggression, we are kind of causing a lot of anger in them. And when we are angry, we cannot think, we cannot problem solve, we cannot listen to someone else's advice. So if you're going to have a discussion with your teenager, always make sure it happens when everyone is calm, or at least when the parent is calm. The next is to encourage autonomy, because now, as I said, they're moving from child to adult, and they need to be able to make good decisions. Now, we cannot expect them to make good decisions as adults if they haven't been given that practice when they're younger. So one way is to give choices, both options of which are acceptable to the parent. So would you like to do this or this? Choices in clothes. Would you like to buy this or that? They may choose something which is too expensive or which you think is inappropriate, as at that age, right? But if you can give choices rather than say, no, don't buy that, let's buy this, you're more likely to get cooperate. Because when we give choices and the person chooses, it gives them some autonomy. But since we are presenting the choices, we do have some control over that. Enhancing communication, both verbal and non-verbal. As I said, verbal has to be with the person being calm, both parents and the child being calm. Sometimes it's not very easy to have a calm child. And, I remember, for example, with my son, he'd be very upset about something. And we say, curfew time, and say, you're so mean, you never let me come home a little late. And all my friends are, staying out till 10 o'clock. You're a real Hitler, policewoman, all this. And like I would say, okay, let's discuss it. And he'd say, yes, I want to discuss it right now. I want to discuss it right now. So I said, no, we'll discuss it when we are all calm. And she says, I'm very calm. I'm very calm. And I knew he wasn't calm. So I'd say, no, I'm not calm. I need to calm down. So it's important to gauge the situation. And as I said, make sure that tempers are not high. Non-verbal communication is also important because sometimes you can't speak because there's a shutter which has been drawn down. At the same time, we need to communicate with our child. So even things like, blowing a kiss across the room, of course, you may even put your hand on their shoulder, be prepared for it to be brushed off and say, don't touch me. That's okay. But you can say, what, I really love you. And that's it, or even notes. I I'm quite a negligent parent. So I used to take a lot of recourse to this method, write a lot of love notes and then put them into my son's bag or into his cupboard or wherever, different box, and hopefully gain some salvation as a parent. But I can tell you it's a very, very powerful way, just saying, I'm so happy to be your mom, or you give me so much joy, or you are my star, and just any kind of loving message. And staying calm, easier said than done. So parents must learn self-calming techniques. Look after yourself. Make sure that you keep your stress under control. You must do something on a daily basis to recharge your batteries, especially if you have a teenager in the house, because it is stressful. So whatever floats your boat. It could be listening to music, going for a walk, doing yoga, talking to a friend, watching TV, taking a nap, anything. But it has to be done every day, just like you recharge your mobile every day. You have to recharge and lift your spirit through something that you do for yourself. Because if you expect someone else to do it for you, most likely it's not happening. So self-calming and stress management techniques on a daily basis. Okay, now let's get into the kind of changes of puberty. So let's start with the boys. So as I said, the pituitary hormones act on the testes, which are the male gonads of the sex organs, and leads to production of sperm. And what happens is once puberty takes place, on any sexual excitement, it could be through a thought, it could be something the boy has seen, the sperm actually moves through the spermatic cord, which is a long kind of tube. The technical name for it is vas deferens. Okay, and can you see my pointer in my cursor? No, okay, anyway, so it's that from the testes down, that long kind of loop shaped tube which goes round, okay, over the bladder. And with the sexual excitement, blood flows into the penis. And the penis actually has spongy tissue, 3 bundles of spongy tissue in it. So when the blood flows through the penis, it becomes firm. And that is what we call an erection. Okay, if the sexual excitement continues, it will result in an orgasm, which is the height of sexual pleasure. And that results in ejaculation, where the semen is ejaculated out of the penis. Okay, now the ejaculate, it just 1% of the ejaculate is semen actually. The rest is all fluid, which is produced by the prostate, which is added to the semen, by the seminal vesicles, which are again 2 glands, which are kind of open up into the spermatic cord, and another set of glands known as the Cowper's glands. Okay, so these three glands produce fluid which adds to the added to the semen and which is part of the ejaculation. Sperm don't have their own source of energy. So they need a lot of energy because they have to swim a really long way in order to fertilize an egg. That's why you need the semen, which is very rich in glucose, so that the sperm can survive for long periods of time outside the male body and inside the female body. Okay, so we've spoken about erections. As I said, it's blood flowing into the penis. And this can happen even without any sexual thought. And it can be quite embarrassing for young boys. So we need to talk to them about how to handle it in public, because when they're sitting on a bus or they're in class and they suddenly get an erection, it's highly embarrassing for them, and they think the whole world knows that they have an erection, okay, which is not true. But how can they handle it? Wear well-fitting underwear, loose pants, and to cover, wear your shirt out, or you have like a jhola which you can use to cover the front of your body, or you wear a jacket so that it's well hidden. And semen is like body fluid, just like we have tears, we have urine, blood, saliva. So it's just a very normal body fluid. And this is how we explain it to young boys. Sometimes semen is ejaculated at night. This is called wet dreams. It could be a sexual dream, but it needn't even be a sexual dream. But it's embarrassing for the young boy, because he may think, if he's not been explained, that he's wet the bed. But it's not urine, it is ejaculate. And so he may need to kind of tell his parents that he will change his own bed clothes. You can explain, have a bucket into which the young boy can put the bed sheets and whatever else is soiled. And we explain it as the body's way of making room for more sperm. So just like when we cry, more tears are produced. If there's an ejaculation, it doesn't mean that we are losing strength or losing blood, because in Southeast Asia there's this myth, it's called the Dhat syndrome, that if you ejaculate too much, you become very weak. There's nothing like that. It's just the body's way of making room for more sperm, and the body is very capable of making a lot of sperm and a lot of semen. And of course, as I said, we need to teach our sons how to deal with this, to clean up the toilet paper and put the sheets to wash. Let's look at how we help our girls and what happens there. So the pituitary hormones here act on the ovaries, and ova are released. These ova actually are present right from birth. So girl babies are born with all the ova they will ever need right through life. And that's around 1 million ova. But of course, right from birth, these extra ova, we don't need that many for sure, start getting destroyed. So by the time they reach puberty, there are about 3 lakhs of ova present, which is again plenty. So these ova are released, and then they enter the fallopian tube, okay, which is like those arm-shaped extensions from the uterus. And they go through the fallopian tube into the uterus. Now, if there is sexual intercourse, vaginal intercourse, these get fertilized, the ova gets fertilized by the sperm in the fallopian tube, and then it is implanted in the in the uterus. However, if there's no fertilization, the lining of the uterus, which has been thickening during the menstrual cycle, that thick lining is not needed. And that is then ejected from the body in the form of menstruation. So when we're explaining to our girls, we describe that thick lining like a mattress which is being prepared for the ovum which has been fertilized by the sperm. And since they are young, okay, they're too young to have babies, okay, that the uterus has to remove that mattress, okay, so that's how it comes out from the body as menstruation. Right, so about menstruation, periods are absolutely normal and natural. Very important to say it's not an injury, because during periods we bleed, okay, so it's absolutely kind of normal for girls to think that they're seriously injured or they have some cancer or something like that. So it's important to talk about that it's not an injury, it's a wonderful natural part of becoming a woman. And they start generally around 10 to 11 years, but maybe as early as 8. and a period lasts around 3 to 7 days. Early signs, when do you know that a period is going to happen? It's around 1 year after breast enlargement. So one of the earliest signs of puberty is the breast enlargement. So if you see this in your daughters, now it's time to start talking about the periods too. Another sign is vaginal secretions. So sometimes you will find on your daughter's panties like more, yellowish kind of secretion. So that again is a sign of an increased activity in the vaginal area, and it can herald that the periods will be starting sometime soon. Roughly occurs every month or so, but initially for the first 2 years, they may be quite irregular. So you can mark it out on the calendar so that you can figure out what the pattern is for your daughter. Personal hygiene is very important. So regular washing with soap and water, and of course using a sanitary napkin or a pad. Tampons can also be used, preferably for older girls. And with a tampon, they can kind of do like water sports or other like very strenuous sports activities. And now we also have menstrual cups, which are much more environmentally friendly and easily available. Okay, the premenstrual syndrome, this happens before the period, and it's when progesterone is secreted, and it can be associated with some cramping, just feeling under the weather, feeling moody, some backache, and feeling bloated. So some of the things that can be done to tackle the symptoms during this period is, one is try and decrease the amount of salt that is being taken in, drink a lot of fluids, and that should be the advice even for boys for their acne and so on, because when you drink a lot of fluids, it really helps to control these symptoms. And of course, do some light exercise, as well as if it's, the cramping is quite severe, then a painkiller, a mild painkiller like paracetamol can be taken. Okay, wearing a bra. This can be a big event in the life of your daughter. So it's important to get them used to it, because it can feel quite uncomfortable at the start. So, using an inner vest or a sports bra, which is kind of more secure and feels less awkward. Then choosing the right size. This is important. So there are kind of ways to measure. So quickly I'll run through it. So one is to take the band size. So every bra has a band underneath. So there you take the measurement snugly under the breast. Okay, so whatever measurement you get, you round it up to the next full whole number. So if it's say 26.7, you round it up to 28. If it's a even number, you add 4. So 28 plus 4, it's 32. If it's an odd number, you add 5. So if it's 29, add 5, it's 34. Okay, so that's your band size. Then you take the measurement around the fullest kind of part of the breast, okay, and check what that number is, right? It should be more than the band size number. Now you subtract the band size number from the full size or the full measurement. If there's a difference of 1, that's an A cup. If there's a difference of 2, that's a B cup. If there's a difference of 3, that's a C cup. Okay, so this is how you can choose the right size. Of course, bras, they're not always made the same. So an A cup or B cup of one company may be quite different, slightly different from the A cup and B cup of another company. So you may have to try them on to actually see how they fit. And go shopping together, give choices and colors. Now we have lots of options, so it can be quite a fun event for the family, maybe. Yes. Right. Now, talking about gender variance and gender preference, I think this is very important. If we've not done it earlier, at least at adolescence. Now, gender identity. When a boy knows he's a boy and a girl knows he's a girl, or a girl knows she's a girl, sorry, this happens by age 4. Okay. But we now know there's something called a third gender. So gender variance is not uncommon, and we have to talk to our children about it. So it is a scientific fact. It's not some bad upbringing or some moral dilemma. Gender is determined by so many things. We have like our hormonal sex. We have our, that's depending on what is the proportion of hormones which is secreted. We have our chromosomal sex, which is the X and the Y chromosome. So you may have an XXY, you may have an XYY. So that also determines the gender. Then you have your hormonal sexes. So then you have your gonadal sex, because there are some children who are born with a combination of both ovaries and testes, right? So gender is a very complicated kind of construct. And therefore, gender variance is a scientific fact. And we need to talk to our children. First of all, read up about it and be aware of it, and then talk to our children about it. Also, gender preference. Many gay people self-identify as teenagers. So this is something we should talk about, because if we don't, they are already confused. And when they don't feel comfortable in their own bodies, about their own gender or their attraction towards the same sex, it creates a lot of fear and they stay silent. And that can cause a lot of mental stress in them. So we need to talk about it to them and to teach respect as a family value. That regardless of your gender, regardless of your gender preference, okay, all of us deserve respect. And that as a family, this is our family value, is that we will respect everybody. Right, so let's look at this situation. This is a 12-year-old and his parent has found this magazine in the school bag. Okay, so what are you going to do? So again, as I mentioned earlier, it is a sign that your child has developed an increased interest in knowing more about sexuality. And actually, media is a place that they turn to. And it is a wonderful way to discuss and teach about sexuality. Whether it is a TV program on a gay pride parade, or it is something on the radio, or it is some kind of press release about a rape that happened. Media is actually great to talk about. Songs, lyrics of songs. Many of the lyrics that we hear today have a lot of very, very explicit sexual content. So rather than say this is a dirty song and you should not listen to it, you can be sure your teenager is going to listen to it on the quiet. Use it as a way to talk about, respect and, how we treat each other, and how, women's bodies should not be commodified, and so on. Okay, but please listen to their point of view also, and don't come all preachy down on them. Okay. So a few last points about parental guidance. So the first thing is educate ourselves. That's key. And I'm going to share some resources. There's plenty of wonderful information out there. So, you have a lot of choice. Secondly, start early. It is a difficult topic, but the earlier you start, the better it is, not only for you, but also for your child. Very important to stay connected with them. So not just about sexuality, but all aspects of life, and to share the family value. That's important. When they are adolescents, they may disregard your values and poo-poo them and say, this is all old-fashioned and, I disagree with it. That's fine. They're still listening to you. So you can say, well, let's agree to disagree, but this is the reason why I have this value. So if sexuality is a difficult word to use, please just talk about body science, because that's what it is. It's about understanding and getting to know your own body and appreciating your own body. So it's just all about body science. We use teachable moments in media. So I mentioned some of the teachable moments. So that's, you can't sit down with your teenager and have an A to Z talk about sexuality. Their eyeballs are going to roll over and they are going to kind of try their best to escape. So teachable moments is a great way to make it very natural. And this not only for teenagers, right from children. You see two dogs mating in the street, your 4-year-old is very curious, what are they doing, So you can say that's how the dogs make babies, right? And you can leave it at that. And maybe later on when you're at home, if your child asks you again, you can delve into it in further detail. But it's basically a teachable moment. And these are opportunities for us to talk about sexuality with our children. Get a good book and other resources. I'm going to share some very soon. Keep the conversation going. They need to know that the door is open. They may, when you start, they may say, oh no, please, I don't want to know about this. Like, don't talk to me about this. So you can say, yes, it's embarrassing. Okay, you may feel awkward, but it's an important conversation, right? So I'm going to give you a book which you can read, and we can talk about the, if you have any questions, you can come back to me, but we'll address this from time to time. If you think it's something that has to be said, say you're, teenagers leaving to go to college, okay, and you have to talk about safe sex and dating and stuff like that, the best place to talk about it is in a car. So, you are driving your teenagers by your side. You don't have to make eye contact. Both are facing forward. He can't jump out of the car. So he or she's like a captive audience for some time. But it's a good way to talk about it. And rather than bombard them with, a sermon, say, I've been thinking about this. What do you think about it? And they may say, oh God, we don't want to talk about it. And then you can say, yes, I know it's awkward. However, it's important. And then you can talk about why you think it is important. Right, so some resources for websites. We have these two, there are several more, okay? This is just a little peek or a very small selection. SECUS, which is the Sexuality, Information and Education Council of the United States. Tarshi is our own, talking about reproductive and sexual health in India. And this is an excellent website. They have great resources, a whole range of books. The red and blue are for teenagers. Yellows for parents, oranges for teachers, all about sexuality. Meg Hickling's books are fabulous. So if you see any of them, please grab them. Really funny also, great to read. And Look What's Happening to My Body is for the young person. There's a book for boys and a book for girls. I suggest you get both for your children, regardless of whether they're boys or girls. So these are some of the really great resources that I have used, and I'm sure you'll find them helpful too. Right, so 13 minutes for questions. Sorry, I was hoping we'd have more time, but I'd love to hear the questions which have popped up in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nandita. I was listening in rapt attention. And we have an absolute flood of questions. So I want to put a disclaimer out there, guys. We have limited time, a lot of questions. We're going to try and answer as many as possible by 8 o'clock. And let me just get started.
Right, or I can come back for part 2.
That'll be great. Yes.
Okay, that's it, right.
So I think one of the most challenging, issues that comes up for parents is often how much is too much. How much information to give at what age, and it seems like this is all spectrum. No, when you start talking about puberty, you have to talk about sex, you have to talk about physical attraction, you have to talk about like you very rightly pointed out. You may have to talk about sexual preferences, and then you're like, I don't want to have these conversations with my 8-year-old or my 9-year-old or my 13-year-old or my 17-year-old. So how much is too much? And how do we, and especially if the kids are not asking you anything about it, if they're not showing you any giving you any clues as to say that, hey, I'm curious about this, then how would you be able to kind of address both of those?
Sure. So I'm of the opinion that nothing is too much unless your child is like fallen asleep. Okay, then obviously it's too much. So there are different topics at different ages. In fact, that's what I cover in the whole childhood sexuality training. But first start with what is relevant to them, which is their own bodies. So for preschoolers, definitely naming the body parts, and I say using the scientific names for the body parts. Okay, then, school age children are very interested in the mechanics of the body. So how does the body work? Like, where does the urine come from? Where does the feces come from? And things like that. Okay, so that is again another important thing. Then, of course, puberty, again, like start with just their own changing bodies and what are the changes they're going to experience. As I said, many of these resources will give you a list. So you can go, topic by topic. But also teachable moments will happen. So your child will just ask a question. Your 5-year-old may come and is watching TV and ask you, what is a condom? Okay, because it's a teachable moment. They've just seen an ad for condoms. right? So, you can say it's a way to, so that you don't get a baby. Just keep it. In fact, when we say when a child asks a question, there are 3 steps. So one is, ask them what they think. That's the best thing, because when children ask you a question, quite often they've already thought about it for quite some time. So when you say, what do you think? It also gives you time to think, right? So they'll tell you whatever they think, or they may say, I don't know anything. Then you give information, okay, and as simple as possible. So depending on what the question is, and many of these resources tell you how to say that. So how's a baby born? So when a mommy and daddy are ready to have babies, they can have babies. Okay, so that's a very general. An older child may put up what, how. Okay, so then you can talk about the penis and the vagina, and the penis going into the vagina, sperm, ovum, all that, right? So depending on the age of the child, so giving information. Third is you give the family value. Okay, so like, who are gay people? Are they happy people? Says, well, gay also means happy, but in this context, gay means when a man loves a man or a woman loves a woman, they're called gay, right? And we believe that gay people, just like other people, should be respected. That's the family value. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. And I think you've really highlighted one very crucial thing, is that this is not a one time conversation. You start
Yes,
off, as young as possible, and it keeps happening over the years, each time at a different degree. So thank you for
absolutely.
that. Again, huge challenges around using terms like masturbation, porn, and somewhere the fear that, am I condoning this? When I am talking to my child about it, am I telling them it's all okay? And there is a fear lurking there for a parent sometimes, as in, are they going to try something um, inappropriate, or are they going to take a risk? So, in such a case, what would you suggest to a parent?
Right. So the M word, masturbation, absolutely normal. That's the short answer, right? And it's just a way of self-exploration. Even fetuses masturbate. So ultrasound pictures have shown that even fetuses masturbate, and very early on, children learn that touching different parts of the body gives different sensations. So if I scratch my head, I feel something. If I rub my nose, it's another sensation. And if I touch my private parts, the sensations are pleasurable. Okay, so it's a very normal, natural way of self-exploration. There's absolutely nothing bad about it. All we have to teach them is that we socialize it. Okay, so it is private touching. So the concept of private and public again has to be taught very early on. So private and public in different aspects. So private and public in body parts. Okay, so what are the private parts? The private parts are the ones covered by the underwear. Private and public in terms of behaviors. Anything to do with the private parts is a private behavior. So if you want to pass urine, it's with your private parts. You have to do it in a private place, which is the bathroom. Okay, so when we talk about this private public, so masturbation is private touching, which has to be done in a private place. That's all they need to know. Okay, so parents are very worried about this excessive masturbation. Okay, in my long career, I've never seen it. Okay, except in a young child who had a bipolar disorder, where with hyperactivity she also had hypersexuality. But otherwise, children masturbate when they want to relax, when they want to calm themselves. Young children do it before bedtime, and you may find a child doing it on the carpet in the TV room when the whole family is there, because they haven't learned that it's private behavior. So what we do is we can distract the child because it's in public, or we can just take the child away and say, this is private behavior. You can't do it in a public place.
Thank you. Yeah. What about physical displays of affection within the family? Especially as they're growing up, when in their pre-teen, teen age. Is it okay for there to be physical display of affection between the parents? Visible to the child? Does it impact the child negatively in any way?
Well, I hope the parents will be hugging and kissing each other, regardless of the children being there. Of course, I mean, they need to see a display of affection. No children are helped by seeing sexual intercourse. Okay, so that is an absolute no. So sometimes when parents live in small houses, or they're careless about shutting the bedroom door, that's something they have to be careful about. But if your child walks into the bedroom, when you're having sex, all you need to do is cover yourselves, of course, and then say, this is the way mommy and daddy show love to each other, which for them is hard to believe because it looks like you're attacking each other, and so they need to be reassured about that, and of course be careful the next time that the door is closed. right? But just affections, holding hands, hugging each other. Yeah, of course. For the teenager or for the child, they will tell you. So sometimes they don't want to be touched. They don't even want to be hugged, or they will say, don't embarrass me. Don't talk to me in front of my friends. Don't say hi to my friends. Go away, when my friends come. That's absolutely normal. Okay, so we need to respect that and say, yeah, it's embarrassing for you, when mommy comes in and kind of puts her arm around you. Yeah,
But
that's
there's no
normal.
need to restrict ourselves, right? Just because our boys are growing up,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Even but your children will tell you, like if they're angry with you, they don't want you to, even be in the same room as them. So they'll say, get out of my room. Right. So we need to respect and say, you're really upset because I'm not sending you for the disco party. And I understand that and I'll leave you alone. But remember that I love you. Okay. And if you're on text together, send an I love you message, you may get one I hate you message back. But they need to know that you're always there and don't take their misbehavior personally. Even if they push our arm away, they know that you've extended your arm to hug them, right? So, we need to be firm in that we love them regardless of all their kind of tempers and tantrums and rejection of us. And sometimes it affects us too. So at that time, it's okay. Take your time away and say, it's very hard for me to yourself to be loving at this point, but that's okay. I'll also calm down and, be able to reach out when I'm feeling better.
and it can be as challenging a time for the parent as for the child, isn't it? This
Absolutely,
period
absolutely. So I
of
think
their
even
life.
discussions like this, where parents understand they're not alone, and it's something which is very normal and natural. I think this also helps parents to cope with that. I call it a tsunami, of teenage or adolescent changes and hormones.
And what can we as parents do to really help our children, with anxieties around, the bodily changes? Like you said, it differs. The developmental stages may be different for different children, and if our child is lagging behind or has like overtaken all their peers, what can we as parents do to really, help them with, the feelings that are triggered by that?
Yeah. So to explain that there are differences, first of all, that it's not abnormal, and there is this range of 8 years. So some may start early, some may start little later, but eventually everyone becomes an adult, right? And of course, normalize that change. That's important. So don't pathologize it. Like if a child is having, a mood swing, like saying that, why are you so grumpy and cranky? Understand that it's part of adolescence. So yeah, it's hard for you. Things which may seem very small to me as a parent seem very major to you because you were really looking forward to whatever is the disappointment that they're facing. Yeah. So to kind of empathize and say it is part of growing up.
Really acknowledge and empathize, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We have a very specific question regarding when is it okay for girls to start using tampons? Did you have a age in mind?
Right. So the tampons which are available now, okay, you get the small size. So that I would say around 15, 16, it's okay to use them. But the thing is that, the important thing about tampons is they shouldn't be left in the body for more than 4 hours because there's something known as toxic shock syndrome where there's infection and, it can be quite severe. So never use a tampon overnight. It should be only during the day. And as I said, as far as possible, for like when you can't use a pad, though of course older girls by the time they're 18, 19 just prefer sometimes to use tampons. That's okay. But I would say like 15 would be the cutoff point, not younger than that. Yeah. And they have to be inserted properly. The instructions are quite specific on the package.
Right. And we have just two more questions. Would it be okay if I
Yeah,
asked you this?
sure, sure.
We are at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Um, and the books and the resources that you shared, um, should the parents be reading that to kind of empower themselves with that awareness, or should these be given to the children to read?
So the websites definitely are for the parents. The books, the first two are for parents, or rather all the Tarshi books, except the red and blue book. That's for teenagers. The other books, the yellow is for parents, and the what's happening to my body, that is for teenagers. But the parents should read that book because it's a lovely question answer way, and it has a lot of information about the different aspects of growing up.
And they can be great conversation starters too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there is a lot of conflict around wearing underwear during sleeping, especially for these growing children. It's often recommended that young girls not, and for young boys too. And is it safe for young boys to wear tight underwear?
There's no reason to wear underwear in the night when you're sleeping, both for boys and girls, because body parts need to be aired. So there's absolutely no reason to wear underwear unless you're having a period, in which case you have to wear your pad.
Right. Dr. D'Souza, we have a question about dealing with and explaining puberty to a special child who is a teenager. Would you be able to
I'm so happy that this parent has asked that question. Yes, children with special needs also go through puberty just like neurotypical children. In fact, sometimes they start puberty even earlier. The precocious puberty is more common when there's a neurodevelopmental disability. So it's very important to share information about puberty. We have to be more explicit. We have to use a lot of visuals. Generally, depending on the cognitive ability, we decide how much information to share. So we start with the own gender. Okay, so girls should know about themselves and boys should know about themselves. And then we discuss the different changes. There are excellent resources like what we call social stories for puberty. And if you go onto a website, it's called visualstrategies.com. There are many, many resources for all sexuality training for people with special needs.
So with that, we have managed to cover, I think, a wide range of questions, and we've not been able to ask you everything that's come in because some were a little bit more global in nature. But
Right.
just finally, is there any way we can empower parents who come from difficult socio-economic backgrounds to help their children with the socio-emotional needs that comes in with puberty?
Right. So all parents need support. Okay, but it's important that the advice which is given fits that person's culture as well as their thinking. So I would say first understand what parents think, and certain things are universal. So for example, that masturbation is normal regardless of what the background is. That's a scientific fact. I mean, I've had people who think that it's a sin actually walk out of my sessions. And that's perfectly okay, because if what I'm saying it as a scientist. I'm not placing a moral value on it. But if you think masturbation is wrong, that's your choice. I'm not going to force my scientific fact down your throat. Okay, so it's important to be sensitive to other people's belief systems also. But teachers, doctors like me, we give scientific knowledge, and family value can only be given by the family. So that's what parents should also understand, that they can't kind of hand over this task to someone else. They do have to play a role in it. But a lot of our knowledge as parents comes from what our parents told us, or it's like sometimes half-baked. So educating ourselves using any of the resources and so many more which are available, I think that comes first. So I'm sure parents needn't be anxious at all when they go onto the internet and they find out all the information that's available in very easy to understand ways, what you can actually, the words you can use to talk to your kids. That's the first step. Then if you have a pet dog or pet cat, practice with that family pet. Your pet dog is not going to say, what did you say? Okay, so, get those words out of your mouth, whether it's vulva or penis or masturbation or, gay, whatever it is that feels awkward on your tongue, say it to the mirror in the bathroom. You will get comfortable about it, I guarantee.
Such wonderful practical tips, Dr. D'Souza. Just absolutely fantastic. And
thank you.
I think what also comes out so strongly from what you're saying is that all of this is normal. This is part of growing up. This is part of human life. and there is no need to associate shame with any of it.
Absolutely. It's body science. It's body science. That's what it is.
And that's such a wonderful place to start if there is any awkwardness around, beginning this conversation with our children. And in summary, I'd like to just reiterate what Nandita shared with us. We really need to educate ourselves. We need to start early. So no matter what age your child is at, if you haven't had any conversations yet, today is a great time to talk to them. Tell them about this webinar you attended, and maybe what you learned. um, and these need to be ongoing conversations. This is not a one-time conversation. um, Stay connected with your child, and like Nandita very very rightly said, it is not just about this, it is about just remaining connected with them. uh, there are plenty of teachable moments in our lives, in our children's lives, and we can use those to have these connected conversations with them. um, Empower yourself with good resources. Nandita has shared quite a few, and if you go onto the internet, find something that really resonates for you. There's a whole lot of resources there for parents and children. The most important thing is about letting our children know that we are there to answer their questions, and very often they're asking you a ton of questions to really see if you're walking the talk, whether they can really come to you with the questions. So when they come to you with the question, please do answer them. If you're not prepared, it's okay to be honest and say, hey, I'm not ready for this yet, let me just find out and come back to you. So that is just encapsulating this 1 hour of absolutely brilliant insights from Dr. Nandita. Um, she
Thanks,
would like,
Seema. I've
she
just
would,
shared the
sorry.
feedback link. If
Yes.
people could take half a minute to do that. And you did a great job of summarizing everything that I said. Thank you so much. And yeah, so the fact that it is body science, I think that's important. And about the question, if your child asks you a question that you can't answer, first of all, ask them what you think. Then you say, you know what, this is a really smart question. I want to make sure that I give you the right answer. So give me 1 day or 2 days, however much time, and let's talk about it day after tomorrow, okay, so that I give you the right information. So it's okay to ask for time, but please get back. Don't pray that they forget their question, because it's unlikely that they will. And, if they're asking you questions, my God, just give yourself a big pat on the back. You have a fabulous relationship with your child. So the more questions they ask, the better it is for you and for them.
And I find going back to them with an answer, if they're forgotten, is a great trust building. It really builds trust, because the child realizes that you're not trying to evade it, you are going to answer it. And as you rightly said, they are seeking information at this age. If they don't get it from you, they'll get it from somewhere else.
Right.
And then there are chances that it could be misinformation. And we want to be in the position of guiding our children.
Absolutely right. Can I tell a little funny story to end?
Please do.
So when my son was around 6 or 7 years old, he came up to me and asked, Mama, what's porn? So, I love talking about sexuality. So I said, hi, okay, it's, pictures of naked people making love. He looked at me and says, really? I thought it was a piece in chess. So I said, oh, yeah. That also. I said, what you said, that is PAWN, but I said is PORN. So, they're not really interested in, they're interested in what they're interested in. So don't worry about telling too much. He wasn't at all interested in my PORN.
Nandita, we're getting, we have one of the participants saying that it's going into classroom management webinar and not set to the puberty seminar. Is there a link we could share with our participants when we share the link of this recording with them?
Yes. Sorry. I'm not the technical person, so maybe it's that whatever, the new link has not been created. So sorry about that.
Is the link available readily with you right now?
I really don't know.
That shouldn't be a problem.
Now I'm a tech wreck, so. the easiest way is to say no, because I don't know.
No, that's absolutely fine. We'll be able to share the link for the feedback with the link of this recording, which goes out to all our registered
Great.
participants.
Okay.
So,
Thanks so much.
thank you so much, Dr. Nandita D'Souza, for this wonderful
Thanks, Seema. Thanks to Parenting Matters
session.
and to all the participants. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really enjoyed the session. I loved your questions. Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much to all our participants for joining us this evening, for being so engaged, and for bringing up all these questions, which are so relevant to all of us as parents of, preteens, tweens, teens, the entire spectrum. So, Dr. Nandita, if it would be possible, would you be able to join me in a breakout room?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night to everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and good night. And we'll be sharing details of Dr. Nandita and Parenting Matters in the chat box if you all want to refer to it.
Thank you. It's a lovely session. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Loved
Thanks,
it. You're
Shalini.
absolutely inspirational. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I really love this topic, and yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.